right. Welcome to the Pat Life Podcast. As everyone knows, I am Patrick, and today I have with me a special guest. She goes by Hippy Britt on Instagram, so highly recommend checking her out. How are you today, Britt?
Super good. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. So I just want to explain how I came across you. So I've been posting things about the eye and eyes in general, and I'm so fascinated by how do you say it, iridology? Am I saying it correctly?
Iridology.
Okay, so I've come across it through other people, podcasts that I've listened to, and I've just been doing a little more research on my own. So new to it, so I can't say I know much about it. But a friend of mine, Seth, shout out Seth, he was like, "You have to go follow this girl, Hippy Britt. Does a lot of stuff with that." So I've said on your page, and I did I just went to town on just looking at the things and reading the captions that you had and how much you go into creating even your own templates on Photoshop or something to show these components, and you just was fascinated. So I was like, would love to talk to her. So I appreciate you coming on, and I really appreciate your time. That was a lot to say in the beginning, but maybe why don't you express kind of who you are, what it is that you do, and we can go from there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, 5 years ago, I was sick with interstitial cystitis, which is bladder inflammation. And I had a really hard time with that. And I stumbled upon Dr. Morris, who has been a naturopath for the last 40 years, 45-ish. And he teaches how to regenerate the body through food-based medicine. And it really interested me because I had tried basically every natural way to heal that, and nothing was working. Yeah. So I found his stuff and I just dove deep into that. I took his detoxification specialist course through the International School of Detoxification. And I started learning everything I could about the body and how it works and how to actually heal the body. And through that, he also teaches an iridology course. He teaches lymphatic iridology. So there's a couple different kinds, but he teaches one specifically about the lymphatic system, which is the waste system in the body. We have two fluids, blood, which feeds the cells, and lymph, which is composed of the waste from the metabolic processes of the cells. So basically, every disease goes back to having a dirty lymphatic system. And that was really helpful to me because at that point, I knew what I needed to do to heal myself, which was just to clean out the lymphatic system. And it sounds really simple, but it's actually extremely complicated and takes a long time. So 5 years ago, I did that, and I got my first iridology certification same time, and I started offering readings for $20 to just gain an overall knowledge of what the irises look like. And now I've been doing it for about 5 years. I've read hundreds of eyes, and it's really fascinating to me, like just being able to see what's going on in other people's bodies and provide them clarity on what they can do with healing. Absolutely. It's so powerful. So I'm really passionate about it.
That's awesome. We're gonna dive into it, and because I have a lot of questions, so even more so to understand, because for those who don't know, by my opening, we've done a little bit of talking through, DMs, this and that. So she doesn't really know much about me, I can assume. That being said, just I've been a personal trainer for over 10 years as well. So I've worked in the fitness industry, and I stay with my son now, but I do a lot of remote training still to this day. But the thing for me and just my journey was, and we could talk about the system itself and the corruption, but we were never taught any of this stuff. This stuff was never brought up. And there was always something just innate that was like, we're missing something important. Like, we're missing things that should be in front of us. Like if I'm looking at somebody and my intuition's telling me something, but I'm having to follow these protocols because that's what the schooling said. And it's like understanding a balance of the two. But I was like, I'm missing so many things. And one of the things on my journey was, we talk about mind, body, spirit. It was the spirit aspect, and seeing how much we don't talk about that. And we don't introduce that as much into the mainstream. So that already opened my eyes, and through that, and like a ripple effect, so many other things started coming in. Iridology was one of those things. And obviously, as you were talking about, metabolic waste and the lymphatic system. I'm very familiar with a lot of these things, still a lot to learn, which I'm excited today because there's still stuff that I want to dive into. But that was one of the things that I was like, this is not what we're being told, and we're missing something that could be very beneficial. I just don't know what it is. So I didn't know, earlier on, it was like, I didn't know necessarily where to start, what I was missing, obviously. So maybe why don't we talk, being that we all know so much, that there's so much in the eyes. We always talk about it's the window to the soul. It's all these components. Like, what is it that from your field, what do you kind of, how does that begin, that process of like looking into someone's eyes, and what is it that we're looking for? What is it saying? If you want to take it from there.
Cool. Absolutely. So when I look at somebody's eyes, iridology is basically the study of the soft tissues and the organs, and you can see them through the irises. Each area of the iris corresponds to a different body part, basically any kind of like organ or soft tissue inside the body.
Yeah.
So by the way that the iris looks, there are certain indications that tell me about genetic weaknesses, lymphatic buildup, toxicity, bowel congestion, so many different things. And I really do believe the irises are the window to the soul and just the window to the body in general, because you can see all kinds of stuff inside the eye that you would never be able to see through a blood test or an x-ray or anything like that. Right. And it's a really valuable tool for the healing journey in general, because the irises change as you heal. Mine have been changing as I heal. And I can tell that what I'm doing on my healing journey is not only making my body feel better, but it's also presenting changes and progress in my irises. So it's a really great tool for tracking progress like that.
It's interesting. And now, is each eye its own kind of like its own organs, or does each eye express the same thing? Like, this part of the iris on this eye is similar to this side, or does each side have such specificity that
each one is its side of the body. So the right iris is showing the right side of the body, and the left iris is showing the left side of the body. So things like the spleen, stuff like that are only on like the left side of the body are on only the left iris. So it's actually like, it's kind of cool because it'll tell you like which kidney is really the problem, the right or the left, or what side of the lungs is worse than the other side. And it's like, where can you put more attention on which side of the body needs more attention?
So when you kind of start to do an assessment and you see that, okay, maybe let's just say the left side, how do you then, like the left kidney, for example, let's just making this up here. What is then kind of like, through your consultations, are you then saying like, okay, here's the beginning phase? Like, I'm assuming it starts with some sort of detoxification, or is there something else that's happening in that time?
It's starting with diet. Everybody's diet, like we're normally on the standard American diet, which includes meat, dairy, all kinds of stuff. And all of that stuff is really mucus forming and clogs up the kidneys. So when the kidneys get clogged up, they're basically the doorway to the lymphatic system. So if the kidneys are backed up and shut down, the adrenals are not working, because the adrenal glands are basically the brain of the kidney. So if all of those are not working, the lymphatic system is just backed up and nothing is flowing out of that because the doors are blocked. So when I look at someone's irises, normally I can tell by the overall cloudiness and what the colors of the iris look like for how much lymphatic buildup is in the body. And that's because of the kidneys being either weak genetically, if there's like a hole in the kidney area, or they're just full of lymphatic congestion.
Got it. And now I was looking on your page, and I'm sorry, I forget the name, but when you're seeing like a strong, the strong part of the not the pupil, the iris, and you see like, what's it when there's a space that starts to occur? What's the name? Like
it's called a lacuna or a crypt.
Okay, yeah. So is that basically how you can deter whether or not it's how weak it is? Is that your way to be able to tell?
The holes are a genetic weakness. Normally that happens from birth, and they are probably the hardest thing to overcome, because it's not like pulling out toxicity. It's really working with regenerating the genes themselves in those areas.
Interesting.
So yeah, whenever I see a crypt, that normally means that it's coming from a strong genetic line of people that also have genetic weaknesses in those areas.
Now, I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different path, but let me know if you think it's the case. Do you think then there's something trauma based that has to do with that? Like
Absolutely.
okay,
Most of the time it is.
would you maybe try to clarify on your end, like what it is that you,
So for me, the kidneys normally mean fear-based. So people that live in a lot of fear, anxiety, any of that kind of stuff, that can absolutely stem from that. Normally, I would say it's more diet related, but it absolutely can be from trauma. It can be from childhood trauma, any, like any kind of abuse. I see it a lot in the reproductive system and the overall adrenal glands, endocrine system a lot too, because anytime that like you have stress in the body, it's affecting the endocrine system as a whole. So
well,
yeah, absolutely.
well, as you said too, right? The adrenals are the brain, basically the kidneys, and I talk a ton about the vagus nerve and the vagal system, understanding how it's all correlated and all intertwined. And I mean, I'm preaching here, but one of the things I can't stress enough to people is when you're in that constant state of fear, especially when you introduce it into the child at a young age, right? That's just what's introduced, not the hereditary spiritual side that gets basically absorbed into that genetic makeup, right? Now, all of a sudden, it's like those Grand Canyons of trauma and fear are how you, for a lot of people, dictate your entire existence and into
Absolutely.
And so you might be in a, right, and I tell people all the time, we're dealing with a lot of people today in human adult bodies, but in the child mindset, specifically in regards to that fear. Like you can get someone who's like obviously very intelligent. You're like, how is someone so intelligent, falling for this bullshit, right? And you start realizing it's like, well, there's growth, right? And with adulthood and like maybe, mathematics or, crunching, certain things here and there. But in regards to the fear base, like that part of the person is still stuck in some of those trauma, right? And I can only imagine like when you see people as you're exploring more about them, like they're like, oh yeah, I've had a lot of issues, like, or I'm in a lot of fear or stress and trauma, and it shows. I can imagine.
Totally. Like from the second we're born, we're just like overloaded with toxicity. For boys, like surgery, like right off the bat, it's just, there's a lot of fear-based things. And even like the mom, when you're having a hospital birth, like everything is very fear-based. This is one of the reasons why I decided to have two of my children at home, because everything was very, very stressful, and bringing a baby into the world, just like in a bunch of stress, it just sets everything up for keeping people controlled in a fear-based way.
Absolutely. And to take it even a step further, right, it's knowing that there's that fear that's been implemented of going, well, if you do it at home, these are all the fears that can happen. And obviously there are things that can't happen, but it's a two-side, it's two sides of the same coin, right? We know, the malpractice that happens, and I'm saying this from someone who I love very much, who's in that field, and she would say the same thing. There's a lot of mistakes that get made. So it's not blaming anybody, but it's also knowing that that's how the system can be perpetuated onto people is a scary process. And now you have it where you're in that process alone because you can't have family there, right? Which I've seen some post. It's not by accident, and I you 100%.
Yeah, it's never by accident. They want to keep us controlled on purpose, and that's definitely a way to do it. I feel like for me, since my bladder is related to the kidneys and adrenals, like all of that stuff, it's been really healing for me to do my childbirths on my own. I studied a lot to be able to do unassisted birthing, which is also like free birthing. Yeah, me and my ex-husband, we had our two babies in our bathtub, the last two of them. Yeah, together. We were very educated, very researched. We did our first birth in the hospital, and it was perfect, but it was a lot of like fear and stress, and I didn't want any of that. So I did everything I could to stay out of the hospital. And at the time, I just felt extremely confident, both of us did, that we knew everything that we could about birth. And it's just amazing to see the difference in my children. the ones that were like born at home, and then the one that was born in the hospital.
Well, not to be too nosy, but like, what is something that you would consider an obvious observation where you're like, that's different?
My oldest struggles with a little bit more of like anxiety and stress related things. Like he doesn't handle stress very well as the other younger two do. I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And my 5-year-old and 3-year-old are a lot different when it comes to stressful situations. They can adapt better. So I guess that adaptability is the main difference that I noticed between them.
Isn't that interesting as well? Today's society, right? When you're so kind of complacent to convenience, right? There's no real true adaptability that's coming from self. It's always coming from, tell me what I need to do to adapt. You know what I mean? And that makes complete sense to me. But to go back to what you were saying about how you studied up on, home births and doing it, free birth or whatever it's called. What I find fascinating in bringing it to iridology as well is we become so disconnected with knowing our own vessel.
Yes.
And I'm saying this even for me, like I feel I'm pretty well-rounded in things, but even just knowing now more about the eyes or trying to understand more about the eyes, I'm like, I still have so much to learn. And it's okay. I'm cool with saying that because
of course.
I love that because it's allowing me to explore self. But what's interesting is we become so accustomed, a lot of people at least, to going, I don't even know what's wrong with my body. I don't even know where to start. And therefore I need someone else to do it for me. So anything you want to add to that before I add any questions or anything else?
I got ran through the entire medical system in multiple ways to try to figure out what was wrong with me. And ultimately they could not help me at all. And I felt extremely lost and not in my own power. And when I started to research what I could do on my own, I started to regain confidence in myself and just confidence that my body knew innately what it needed to do to heal. So turning on that intuition and trusting yourself is just like, it's huge for the healing journey because you can't heal your body without that, because only you truly know what you need.
Totally. I love that you're saying this because one of the things I go on about is intuition. I'm super into intuition. I don't know what your spiritual side is, but I'm very much through this journey specifically, having my own, having our son, very become closer to God, source, whatever people want to call it. And one of the things that I was saying in my training without this understanding that I have now was follow your gut, follow your intuition, never really truly understanding what I was saying until now. And I think that's what's also kind of interesting, how we know that a lot of people have gut issues. People don't know what's going on in their digestive tract, and understanding obviously how your lymphatic system is so connected to your digestive tract. You have your gullet involved. And, I've done podcasts and talks about that, and it's just really fascinating when you see so many people. You go, just follow your gut, and people go, truly, like genuinely going, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's telling me, and it's always speaking, right? It's always, I was gonna say, with your clients and people come through, have you had these types of these conversations with people, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I tell them, I normally in my iridology readings, I give them a list of herbs at the end of like what I think that they should be working on. And I'm like, use your intuition. Like you use the herbs that call out to you that you feel are going to be the best for you. And they'll reach out to me and be like, I don't really know like how to use my intuition. But most of the time it's because people, they're so clogged in their gut that they can't feel those receptors. They don't know exactly what that is. That's like the gut brain connection is completely off. And once you start cleaning out the gut with like healthier diet, moving the lymphatic system, all that kind of stuff, then you really start to turn on the intuition and the entire game changes. Then you trust yourself. And
isn't that interesting? Is how connecting to your gut allows you to, as you said, have more confidence in self. Like you hear people say, at least I would hear people say it all the time when I was more in person with them, and they were like, yeah, it's just since I've been making these changes, I feel better. I feel more confident, and their weight hadn't changed. Maybe not the weight that we're moving hadn't changed much, but it was just literally starting the healing process, the detoxification process. And it shows you how it doesn't take much to get that beautiful spark or that light to go like,
Mm.
all right, intuition's coming back. Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's what's so fascinating to me. And I guess maybe to bring it back to iridology, like what are some of the constant, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say like problems, but like, what are some consistencies that you're seeing where you're like, I've observed that this is in a lot more people than
Yeah.
most.
Basically everyone has kidney issues, and then normally people will have a malabsorption, which is the bowel wall being coated with mucus so dense that nothing gets through. Like nutrients cannot actually get through the digestive passageways to be absorbed. And then I see digestive clogging. So normally that's just like a lot of exit path clogged up areas, and that's where you see weight gain, teeth problems, hair loss. All of this kind of stuff stems back to the body not being able to get enough nutrients because everything is too clogged for the nutrients to actually get through to the digestive system where it can, because the intestines take up all of the nutrients through their little villi.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
with those types of clogs, being that it is so common, and I know you said you kind of give a list of herbs and say follow your intuition, but for those listening, might wanting some just simple recommendation of like, okay,
Oh yeah.
what do I?
It's all diet.
It's all diet.
It's all diet related. I tried so hard to avoid going on a plant-based diet. And it was like 5 years. I knew I needed to be on a plant-based diet. And I was like suffering for 5 years until I finally tried it. 2 weeks later, I felt better. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been avoiding my gut because
Yeah.
I knew what I needed to do. And I was like, but it's hard and no one's going to accept me. And I'm going to be the only one different in my family. And everybody's going to have to cater to me and make special meals. And I'm going to be difficult and all this stuff. But like healing yourself is more important than any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm always telling people mostly plant-based. If you can't do all plant-based right now, work into mostly plant-based. And then the raw foods are a huge thing. It's so hard to heal the body without raw foods because that's where the electricity, that's where all of the nutrients is coming from that's not cooked out through cooked food. So fruits, vegetables, as raw as possible. And that's what they tell you in the beginning when you're kids. How do you be healthy? Oh, you eat lots of fruits and vegetables. And then somehow like through life, we forget like, oh, I guess I don't eat enough fruits or vegetables. And that was just like, it was huge. Like they give you the little keys all the time. They're putting these little keys in you, but they're not like stressing them enough to where you're like, oh, I have to eat a diet literally full of fruits and vegetables.
Right.
And yeah,
Well,
that's definitely where it's at.
Well, what's funny about that is I noticed when I was during training and, you meet with people and I'm like taking part of my growth is now allowing my ego to get the best of me and was with people and be like, all right, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. I got all the answers. Realizing that was stupid, but I was going, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, I want you to start eating. We're going to eat more of this. We're going to eat this, and this. And I'd hear people like, yeah, I know that. And so then I finally got to a point where when I'd have people come in, I go, okay, like, what do I need to do? Like, tell me what I need to do. I'm like, okay, I want you to tell me what you think I'm going to say. I got to a point where I was just going like, I feel like you and I both know the same shit. Like, I don't know why I'm telling you this because you're not, if we're not seeing the growth, it was like, you know this, I know this. And they would tell me, they would rifle off the same stuff. Now, some things I'd be like, okay, maybe a little less of that, but this absolutely. And then it was always, well, why? If you already kind of know these things, like you said, it's been already in our education or even in our field of understanding and learning, it's going, but why is it so hard for the individual then to pursue it and go forward with it? And I came to that going back to like traumas and energy, and you were talking about electricity, is it's knowing, right, of when you're someone who's in a trauma base and there's constantly comfort foods, right? That's becoming a coping mechanism, right? You start to see that there's these deeper connections that are rooted in like sugars. And we know how there's that parasitic nature of some of these foods and these pesticides and these herbicides that can literally turn people's cells into zombies and turn people into people like, give me more of that,
Yes.
And so for me, it was realizing it's like, oh, we have to like reprogram, like total break program because you already know the answer, but your body's like, I need this, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me was the eye awakening. And as you said, it's electricity, or for a lot of people, lack thereof.
Yes, totally. That emotional eating really controls the entire healing process. I noticed that people have a lot of problems during transitioning to mostly raw or just fruits and vegetables in general, because they really want and feel like they need those comfort foods. And maybe they do, but they also need to address the emotional problems. Like, why am I craving macaroni and cheese? Oh, is it because my dad used to make this for me and I'm like missing my dad? Why don't I go and call him instead? And, you know, and that's like, that's a huge part about healing the body, is you have to do mind, body, and spirit, like all at one time. And you have to have enough mental discipline to put yourself in a situation and be confident enough to be like, okay, I know that this is what's going on. I know it's an emotional trigger. How can I overcome this? How can I have enough discipline in my mind to make sure that I'm going to stay on track no matter what is put in front of me?
Absolutely.
It's tough, but healing yourself is not just about healing the body. It's about healing your emotions, healing your mental state, healing yourself spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
and your relationship with God, because these are the foods that God gave us. And a lot of the times we're not eating food that God gave us. We're eating like McDonald's plastic food.
Seriously, and that's not even an exaggeration.
It's
Yeah.
really not.
But that's, see, what's so interesting is when, for me, is when you look at it from that lens, right? That perspective of this is literally a gift that's continually giving by God. And when you allow it to do that type of just kind of regeneration, which it's there, and don't kind of mess with it, or if you're going to give like feedback to it, it makes a world of a difference. It allows you to actually be in a place where you, as you said, you start to feel confident. Like I always, through my journey, I've been planting and growing more, and like trying to do my own type of, gardens here and there. And you realize when you're giving back to it, you feel like you're truly back with this, part of nature, right? We're not different from it, but we've been programmed to think we're bigger than it, we're above it.
Yes.
And I think that's what's so fascinating is it's how ironic is it that most people think they're above and we're the apex, but yet we're stuck on all these medications and we're in constant fear based and we don't know how to take care of ourselves. It's like, last time I checked, that's not an apex type of predator, or, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
if we have intellect, okay, well, if we have intellect, why is it that we're thinking from a fear-based mindset when we're looking at something out there in the world, right, that doesn't clearly make sense?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, and that's what's so funny is we think a certain way because of the programming, yet we completely lose sight of the fact that, like, go out in nature, go look in that fruit, look at the symmetry in that, look at the geometrical, that sacred geometry that's in that food. You think that's by accident?
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Like
even
your
you,
body wants that.
right? Your body's like literally screaming for it. Like, yeah. And I think that's what's cool. And let me ask you this, with your clients and the people you work with, when you start that journey, how do you see a quick turnaround? Do you see people kind of having a little bit more lightness in the conversation?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to maybe kind of chime in on a little more of that?
It's huge. Recently I did a iris reading, like a follow-up iris reading, and she's been on the path for a little over 2 years. And I could clearly see in her irises the change. They used to be really like white and cloudy, and they would be like a little bit green. And then the deeper blue started to come in. And that's the true eye color of the blue eye. There are only two true eye colors, blue and brown, and any green, any kind of yellow, any of that kind of stuff is not a true eye color. That's lymphatic damage and buildup in the iris.
Really?
So yeah, anybody with like super white blue eyes, it's acute lymphatic buildup. So the goal is to have a deep, royal, lovely blue.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's super interesting. There's so much I can go into about that, but
Well, go on.
the
I'm
change.
interested. I've been,
Yeah.
I have blue eyes, so I've been told when people look, they're like, you have really like great eyes, and I've looked at them and I see a lot of things that you've seen as like weaknesses, so I'm like interested. But like, what is the royal blue? Like, what other grave you got there?
There's a lot of statues, like a lot of ancient statues that have blue eyes, in Egypt, China, India, all over the place.
Huh.
And to me, I feel like um we are supposed to be mostly like a blue-eyed people, especially people with lighter skin. All of us are supposed to have blue eyes. And
Mhm.
it's just like in history, it's been a thing. But
Even in the
uh,
picture of like brown eyes, like just like even like a pure brown, like dark brown eye, even like
yeah,
you think that they should naturally have more of a true blue.
it could be, but I haven't seen that. What I've seen is true brown, which normally comes from people with darker skin. Like anybody with lighter skin normally doesn't have true brown eyes. They have lymphatic congestion and buildup.
Yeah.
But for the most part, people with like light colored skin are supposed to have blue eyes. So
And have you seen
it's
people with
huge.
that lymphatic buildup uh, become lighter, like to more of a,
Yes.
you've seen that?
Yes, it's huge. It's just a huge change. One of
Really?
my friends, he is Italian and he has a lot of like orange and dark brown buildup, but underneath I can see these like very light colored blue eyes. And he's been on the healing journey for probably 3 years. He's been vegan for like 7 or 8 years, but still eating like the mucus forming foods like grains and starches, like all of that kind of stuff. But once he went raw, his eyes started to lighten up a lot. And he's like, wow, I really thought that I had brown eyes, but I can see all of these green and blue hues. And in true brown irises, you don't see any kind of green or brown or green or blue hues at all. So
Interesting.
yeah, and in my own eyes, same thing kind of happened. I was born with brown eyes, and now my eyes are blue, and I have orange around the inside, which is a sulfur buildup from pharmaceutical antibiotics.
Interesting.
So yeah,
And
and I've
what,
been getting that to like fade away, which is
and
really nice over the last 2 years of fasting and juicing and doing all of that kind of stuff. More of like a spiritual connection with my fasting because I don't do that for like weight loss or anything like that. I do that for cleansing through the autophagy process because that's what happens when you fast.
you want to maybe explain what you're
And
talking about a little more? For those who might.
so what the autophagy process is, it's basically self-eating. So when you do not eat anything, your body goes into a cleaning mode, which starts to regenerate and clean the cells. Basically, your body will eat up all of the junk and then let it go for the waste. So last year I did 30 days on juice in August, and then I took 2 months off to refeed my body, and then I did another 30 days on juice. And during those two 30-day times, I was still eliminating every day, every single day. So to me, like I got down to 84 pounds and I still had waste coming out of me when I was not eating food.
Jeez.
And that is huge because we're all filled with crap. Like the lymphatic system is miles long. So to get through all of that and start to break down all the things lining the passageways, it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of unwinding because it took centuries to build up. And now if you're truly willing to do the work, this is the work that you have to be doing. And it's a commitment to yourself and healing your genetics.
Now, when you got down to that weight, like, what was your energy levels like? How did you feel weak?
Amazing,
Really?
completely amazing. I felt so good every day. I was working out. I have 3 kids, so I'm running around constantly. Like there's no time for me to just like lay around and do nothing.
Like you didn't
I
feel
felt
lethargic?
great.
You didn't feel
Sorry.
some lethargy or whatever, anything like that?
No. The only time I feel like that is when I'm doing water fasting or dry fasting because I'm not getting actually any calories at all. And when you're doing that, you should be resting. That's huge for water fasting and dry fasting. But juice fasting, I was drinking at least a gallon of juice every day, and I was getting probably like 1,500 to 2,000 calories, depending on what kind of juice I was drinking. And I felt amazing because I was not putting any pressure on my digestive system at all to use that energy for digestive processes, breaking down food. So all that energy is just free energy for me to use for whatever I want to. And normally that's the body's way of regenerating the cells because it has the energy to do so now. And it's not focusing that energy on digestive processes.
Totally. And what's also interesting too, and maybe if you want to chime more on it, is it's, as you said, it's also it's your mindset going into it, right? It's if you're in the right mindset of like, this
Yeah.
is healing, this is going to give me, I'm doing this with purpose and cause, right, then it becomes a situation where you're actually feeding that electricity in the body of like, this is good, this is good, this is good, you know. I don't know if you know Tom Barnett or follow him at all. So he's one of my friends. He was, when this whole pandemic started, he was like made a video that went super viral, basically like talking about like you can't catch a virus and all these things. And he's very much in the natural path, and he's a legend. A lot of people are like, they love the dude. Great guy. And one of the things he says is like, you know, when you're doing things like, yeah, you can eat a food that might be mucus forming or whatever, but if it's a situation where it's once in a while, but it's it's bringing you a good energy, like it's not going to necessarily have the same impact. My buddy Dr. Tommy John says stuff like that too.
Okay, I do know him.
Yeah, he says a lot of stuff like, I've had him on the podcast. It's like, you know, you can have a, you know, a happy donut over, you know, happy or sad salad, and it's those things are definitely carry a sense of truth, right? Like you can be doing something good for the body, but if you're not mentally there, it goes back to the mind, body, spirit, right?
Exactly.
So I was going to say, when you're coaching your clients, is it something do you take time to really focus on that type of appreciation for the journey? Do you?
Absolutely, because none of this is a punishment. Like you should be excited always to be healing your body and feeling good and getting to a space where your body is more like the quality of your cells is better. So anytime I go on a juice fast, I'm excited about doing it, and I don't do it unless I have that excitement behind it. Like sometimes I will try to go on a juice fast and I'll only make it 3 or 4 days because I'm not in the right mindset for that. And I just feel like, why am I doing this? Like your why has to be really good for you to be in a position to go on a long fast like that. For me in December, I went on a 56-hour water fast first. And normally I really like to start my juice fast with that because it sets it up like, wow, I've had nothing for like a little bit over 2 days. And now I can have juices. Like I can have an abundance of juices. And it puts me in a mindset where I'm grateful, you know, like I'm going in with gratitude, like, wow, I'm so excited that I get to put all of these beautiful, awesome foods inside my body and just live off of that. And it really like, it just makes me feel a lot better than trying to do it like, oh my God, I have so much buildup in my irises. I need to do something about this. That's like the terrible mindset to go in. So I'm always preaching to people that they need to transition. Like if you feel like you want that cheeseburger, go for it. And then make sure the next day you're like back on it, you know, or not. Whatever you feel like your intuition is saying to you that you need to do, that's what you need to do. Transition is super important. Going into detox and fasting too much, it makes you feel really lethargic and like crap. And then you'll have detox symptoms, which could be like flu-like symptoms where you're kind of making yourself sick. And that's never a good way to go about healing, because you want to feel good during your healing process the entire time. You want this journey to be enjoyable because it's going to take you a very long time. So just making like a huge lifestyle change like that does not happen overnight. And it needs to be like treated with respect like that. Like you need to be gentle with your body, like you would be gentle to like a small child trying to help them through something.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we were saying about the traumas and
healing your inner child is huge like that.
Yeah. It's fascinating too, when you use, at least from my perspective, when you are on the process of trying to help others find that sense of self-empowerment, essentially, of you have the capability, you have the control over your life. How many people are so timid by hearing that? And I don't know if there's anything you want to chime in or your 2 cents on it, but I find that to be such a interesting thing of like, you have the key. You had the key the whole time in this story.
People are just scared of themselves. I feel like they're just so afraid that no matter what they do, they're just not confident enough in themselves to feel like they're going to succeed. So they don't even try. And that's failure. You just start, like, if you don't even try, that's straight up like you're not going to do anything. So best thing you can ever do is just to put in effort and see where it goes, because the worst thing that could happen is that you stay exactly where you are.
Right. And this is what's so and at least it sounds like for you as well, part of my own journey of patience. I've realized that, at least in my prayer recently, that's something that's been coming up a lot, is patience. is when you realize that people don't see the world the way you do. And you realize though, like in your mind, it's like, I want to give you this piece that has helped me so much. And
Yeah.
you realize that everyone's learning on their own. And you
Hmm.
realize when you understand that this isn't it, this isn't the end. And however you see whatever happens after, I can't speak on that, but it's realizing it's like, hey, maybe in this life, in this vessel, in this moment, they're not going to fully understand it. And there's stuff that I don't understand. But it's, as you said, it's having that gratitude and appreciation instead of looking at your vessel and being like, oh, I hate everything about this. I can't stand
Yeah.
this. Or like, look at how look, like if you look close enough, like one side's off and this side's that, and you realize that is it's a direct, basically direct output of the system that we've been raised in.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and I think I don't know, and we can get into some of this if you want. You know, being called conspiracy theorist or truther, and you realize like how much like people like just loathe that maybe you see things differently, and that the system that has been so corrupt for so long and everybody knows, you're saying, hey, I don't think they have our best interest at heart. And
Yeah.
it's like, you're the problem, or you're the one
Yeah.
causing me this pain. And all I'm trying to
Mhm.
say is going, dude, you
I'm
have,
trying to liberate you. I'm trying
yeah,
to give you a gift.
yeah, you have the potential. And this is goes back to my idea, my thought about patience is like, I've planted the seed. If they take it, great.
Yes.
If they don't, they don't, you know?
Hmm.
And I think that's what's, as you said, with this whole thing, like if you have a burger, like, okay, try to get back on it. If you don't get back on it, follow your gut, you know, as you said, with your
Hmm.
fasting, like, did 3 or 4 days, it just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I had that gratitude or that
Yeah,
appreciation or that electricity behind what it is that I was doing. But I don't
exactly.
know. I'd venture to say that, and if you want to add on to this, that a lot of people, as I said earlier, don't have that electricity. A lot of that electricity is metaphorically, you know, very
Yeah,
low, but also physically, right? With all the buildup and
absolutely.
clogging.
Yeah, and a lot of the times when people get on fruits, they don't feel that great at first because they're taking some stuff out and adding some stuff in that's actually detoxifying their body, and then they're feeling a little bit like sluggish and lethargic or anything like that, and it's discouraging. Like for me, I feel like the education needed to come first, so I knew exactly what the process was going to feel like, what it was going to be like, so that I wasn't afraid going in.
Mhm.
I just had like a better knowledge of what could I expect with any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, absolutely. I'm just I'm called a conspiracy theorist all the time, and I really don't go into those circles anymore. But when I was younger, like early 20s, I would post a lot on Facebook about all kinds of things, truth or things,
Yeah, yeah.
and I would get a lot of negative feedback, which was fine. Like that has nothing to really do with me, but I would tell them that all the time. Like, this is triggering you for a reason. This is something that you need to look into because your body and your soul is telling you something about this. Like, if it really wasn't resonating with you at all, you would pay no attention and keep scrolling.
Exactly. So, because I am interested, and I don't think you're crazy. What are some of the things that have like really caught your attention that you're like, okay, this has got me in the rabbit hole? What were some
So
of the
the
ones that got
first
you like,
thing,
yeah,
my dad red pilled me when I was 15 years old about 9/11 and um, JFK's murder.
yeah,
And
yeah, I do.
those two things really set me off to not trust the government. And then when the vaccine stuff started to happen, I think I was about 18 when I learned about vaccinations not being the best and not actually protecting us from anything. Um,
Yeah,
and then when I had my first son, I would literally Google, like, what can I avoid during birth, or what can I like avoid during child raising? And I found a lot of Facebook groups for natural moms. And that was just a whole rabbit hole in itself,
yeah,
like people using Tylenol and over the counter medication and all kinds of stuff. There's so much
yeah,
in child raising in general that's conspiracy related. And that's why a lot of people were very, um, they were, they just gave me like a lot of backlash, I guess. I got a lot of like, you don't know what you're doing. You're not a parent. You have no idea what it's like to be a parent.
yeah,
If you don't get vaccines, your kid's going to die, all this kind of stuff. All three of my kids are not vaccinated, and none of them have ever had a vaccine preventable disease ever.
Yeah.
And they tell you, they make you feel like your kids are going to have those. So
Yep.
I really prepared, I guess. Like I had a whole list of like herbs, homeopathic remedy, like food-based medicine that I could use if they got them, because I wanted them to get them. I wanted them to have natural immunity.
Right.
So I was prepared. I was prepared for that. And everyone saw that as woo woo, or you don't know what you're doing. But that's what the hospitals are for. Like these are for emergencies. So anytime, like same thing with birth, like try it at home. And if you need to go to the hospital, then you can go to the hospital. That's always available to you.
Really.
There's really, most of the time the complications come from the hospital. So
Right. Well,
that
it's
was a
also,
huge thing in itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
What
That's,
also goes with a lot of the lack of, following your gut intuition and self-care,
yeah,
right? As I said,
absolutely.
knowing very close to people in the medical field who are dealing with this every single day, hearing
Mhm.
how many diabetics they're dealing with on average, working in OBG as well. How many
Yeah.
diabetics, how many obesity in dealing with that, and just understanding like, you know, how they can't even, not that I fully agree, but they can't even get scans appropriately because of that. Like, and I know there's stuff with that,
Yeah.
obviously, but it's just realizing that like these self-care things to make even going to these places hopefully a little bit easier.
Right.
It's actually making it more
So true.
difficult. And you're seeing more and more people going there consistently with more problems and complications. And you add what's happening now with all this stuff,
Yeah.
potentially infertility and all these things. I mean, or at least not potentially, there's people saying how many miscarriages are happening. And that's not
Absolutely.
woo woo, right? And I think that goes to your point of people who are like, what do you know? You're not this, you're not that. And you realize it's that fear speaking.
Hmm.
And it goes to the point of realizing a child who's like, all right, who did this? Who was wrong? I
Right.
know it was him. It was him. It was him. Right? It's never
Mhm.
like being able to take ownership. A lot
Yes.
of people, and that's what's so fascinating is they're going, okay, if you're wrong, Britt,
Yeah.
you're going, okay. I've seen what's at hand. I can just logically break down I can have reasoning. Okay, I admit that I was wrong, or hey, I realized how in this part I was off. Okay, I'm gonna learn.
Mhm.
Get someone who goes now,
Exactly.
hey, these people don't have your best interest at heart. If I have to admit to myself that that's the case, then my entire world flips. And we've all been there. We've all gone through it at
Mhm.
some point, right?
Yep.
But some people can't cope with that, right? And I know I'm
No.
just preaching to you about it, but you realize that now you've planted that seed, all the stress that's building up with that.
Mhm.
Because when you start to see more and more people, that's why I always tell people with like, the flat earth, like, I don't know what the shape is.
Right.
I just know it's not a globe.
Yeah.
I can't say with certainty, but when people go like, dude, you're this, and that, I just simply go, if I'm that crazy, why are more people doing it? Why are more people
Yeah.
interested? Well,
Yeah.
because they're great. So more people are becoming crazier. Hmm, that's
Hmm.
interesting, right? Or
Or is there some truth?
or is there some truth, right? And it goes even to like the whole, simple, they call it a vaccine, but it's not a vaccine; it's an injection, right?
Yeah.
And what's funny. Even today, I took my son to the beach. We're in Hawaii, so we were at a spot and we were getting something to drink, and like, I was like, I'm not gonna wear this. I'm outside, and he's like, no, it's cool, man. Like, I just some people worry about
Right.
masks and this, and he goes, I think it's kind of all like bullshit. I'm like, follow your intuition on that. I literally told him, I go, just follow your intuition. And he goes, yeah, man. He's like, you're standing here talking to me and like people get worried about you. And I'm like, but the people behind, he's like, but the people behind me are sitting. I'm like, follow your intuition, bro. Like that was like, part of me wanted to be like, dude, you have no idea, bro.
Right.
Do you know anything about, agenda two, whatever,
21.
201
Yeah.
or like agenda 23. Like, I'm like going through the whole thing but I'm like, follow your intuition, brother. And as you
Yeah.
get to see, like, I think part of the system has kept a lot of this out of our field, because when people start realizing it and the power of self, it literally becomes this electricity. Um,
Yes.
anything you want
You
to add?
let
I
the
know.
power of like being a divine being, like as part of God's creation, flow through you. And now everything has to change, and people are really afraid of change. Like cognitive dissonance is absolutely a thing. Um, so many people are just not ready to apply that change to everything in their life. And I think that was a huge part of my journey, because I'm always willing to grow. And it's always been like a huge part. Like I tell myself, like I am somebody that
Sure, there you go.
oops. Okay. I am somebody that loves to grow and is always growth oriented. And when I get to a space where something confronts me and I'm like, ooh, am I ready to step into that growth? Ooh,
Mhm.
I do it. And I'm fearful, but at the end, when I come out of that, I gain so much more confidence because of that, because I trusted myself, because I trusted God, because I trusted my own intuition. I just hopped in with both feet and I was ready for whatever outcome to be adaptable and figure it out. And that's key for being a human right now. It's just follow what you really feel in your heart of hearts is right. And if that's wearing a mask and injecting yourself with poisons,
Yeah,
more power to you. And like you have that choice. That has nothing to do with me. And I want the same liberty. I want the same choice. So
absolutely. But what's cool is when you see, going back to the eyes here, when you see somebody who has what you're talking about and what a lot of, I would say, my friends in this community, I guess you can call it, have similar mindsets. One thing I've heard from a lot of people, and even my own, is still like, you just have this lightness in this times that feels so heavy. Like you feel it, like it's like you look, I could see it in your eyes. Like I've heard this, people say to me, like, you just look so calm. Or, and don't get me
yeah,
wrong, I've had my moments, don't, but people are like, you just, how is this not bothering you the same way? And, without immediately telling them how I truly feel, it's really just going like, I realize that I have the ability to heal.
yeah.
And I think a lot of that is expressed through the eyes, right? It is allowing
Mhm.
you into the body in such a way, as you know more than I do, where there's so much
Absolutely.
communication that's happening. And when people are getting foggy and clogged, they see it, they see the brightness in a lot of people, but they can't grasp that, right? Because that alone tells
Hmm.
someone, hey, you can tell somebody's ailments in their eyes. That's now opening windows. Like, wait, I was never told this by my doctor. Let me call my
Yeah,
doctor to make
of
sure.
course.
You know what I mean? Like,
It's
yeah,
insane.
but
So, the
but
entire process is hilarious to me. But I think it always comes back to compassion for me. Like I remember being that lost. I remember being that person that had no idea where the heck they were supposed to go and was fearful to trust anything. And um, I remember what it was like. So I just have like so much compassion for people. And if they don't see the world that I see, that's okay. And that's not really my problem to try to force that on them. So I'll give you love and send you away.
now, do you get a lot of people, maybe not just in your own personal life, but through your clientele, that where people are more susceptible to at least hearing maybe some of these, what would appear in their point of view, out of the box thoughts and concepts, and are more receptive? Or is it kind of, you have to keep things hush hush?
Um, the way that I am on my Instagram, I don't use my platform to stay quiet. I will say whatever I feel like I need to say, whatever needs to come out for other people to hear. That's what I'm putting out there. And if you align with me, great. And if you don't, great. Like,
Yeah,
I don't need anybody to like follow me or like be like doing what I'm doing. I'm just saying my truth. And if that resonates with you, great. My clients, I really don't get a lot of people that don't resonate with the things that I'm saying. Like, I never have people that are like, I don't believe you about this plant-based diet, or I'm not going to try this, or anything like that. Like, they'll get their iris reading from me. And if they don't agree, they're very quiet about it because I never really hear back from them. Or it's normally like 99% of the time people are very intrigued. They want to know more. They want to ask me how they can apply things, what they should be doing, more things about the journey. And that's basically what I share on my page a lot, is different stages of the journey, like what actually comes up for me authentically, because all of us are still like, no matter how long we've been doing it, things are still always going to come up. Like, we'll have experiences like come into our awareness and have to deal with that. And going through that process and being transparent about that and sharing the details, even if they're not like that great, or even if they're like shameful to me, I'm always 1000% honest about it, because that's going to help somebody. That's somebody else is going to resonate with that. And even if it helps one single person, that's fine with me. I'm willing to be real like that.
yeah,
A lot of the times with social media, people try to be perfect. they try to come off as I'm eating this way and this is like this and all of that. But I think the mistakes are what really makes connection a lot deeper between like yourself and your following or whoever, your friends, family, any of that kind of stuff. Like admitting that you're a human and that's okay. That's very powerful for other people because it makes everybody feel like, oh, she's not on a pedestal. She's the same as me. And if she can do it, then I can do it. Why can't I have babies in my bathtub? She did it. So
Well, it
cool.
goes to, and that was beautifully said, because I think that's the issue with the society we're in is people, I'll hear people say what you just said, but their actions speak differently.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I'm going to be honest. But then you'll see like these posts and it'll be like a picture of them like posing and all this perfectness. And then it's like, the journey to the life of self is so much better. And it's like, this isn't what like this, this doesn't resonate the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's what I think is really funny. And at the same time, it's also expressing so much is that this need for acceptance. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. Like if I'm posting something and I put a lot of time to it, like I'm checking, I'm gonna admit it.
Yeah.
Like that's cool. Like, but it's also an understanding for me and through my own growth is like, as you said, like this doesn't define me. It's
Yeah.
okay if something that meant to like, if it doesn't get a lot, so be it. I'm not going to change who I am. Like I've had, it sounds like yourself, like through my experience, I've said what I wanted to say and I've lost friends from it. And I've lost, connections with people and people that I was close with, like chewing me out. And one of the big things I've realized through it is I felt okay. Like I felt better doing it, not because I was trying to call anyone specifically out, but it's knowing where my intentions were. My gut was like, I'm just trying to show people your potential.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to give you power. I'm trying to empower you. Like, why
Right,
don't you want that?
right. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier, is people don't want that type of control. But it's so
Yeah.
interesting is like, talk about the mind, body, spirit is there's a lot of people in my job where they wanted that potential in just how they trained.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally through that, they realized that they had to tap into the mind. Like they needed that mindset to work with the body to get to some of these potentials, right? To see the change that they were desiring. So people want it, but then there's that third component, which, as I said earlier, is the spirituality that is so overlooked. Is because, even just the breath, like how much, let me ask you this, how important is breath work and breathing in what you do with
So
iridology?
important. The breath is the only way that the lymphatic system actually moves because the heart, the blood has like the pump, which is the heart. The lymphatic system doesn't have that. We have the breath and physical movement. So the only way you're actually going to get healthy is if you're breathing and if you're moving your body. And those two things are so key. And it really is. It's like a three-legged race. I'm always telling people that all the time. Like you have to go like mind, body, and spirit all the time. It's not just, I'm going to go ahead and focus just on my mindset and neglect my body and the spirit side, or I'm going to go so hard in spirituality and then be like huge and not like your intuition's not going to be great then, there's everything needs to go together. It's a whole encompassed holistic journey.
Right. And I think that's what's scary for people is through the
Yeah.
education process of holistic has such a bad connotation for a lot of people. But it sounds like more people are coming with an open mind, at least now, because I think, as the snake eats itself, it demonstrates and makes very clear the veil drops where it's like, I have to look at this differently. And like, I know a lot of people in the medical field who are more, trying to look at like more holistic looks and not necessarily that they're bringing that into practice because, well, of course they can't because that the system doesn't call for it. They can't get the funding for that. And this is, and I can know this, I can go on for hours about this. So, and I'm fortunate because I get to see both sides and I'm seeing both sides in the world's trying to mend and how it's actually not allowed to. So I'm very grateful for that because I can see like we can blame doctors, we can blame people. And I'm like, some people, yes, but in reality, you realize that a lot of these people are actually at the helm of the system itself, the beast. And, through their choices, yes, it's maybe, but you see people trying to do the right thing, at least in the system that we know. And one of the things you're seeing more of, at least I'm experiencing across the board, is people opening their minds a little more to the spirit aspect, whether they want to call it spirit, or God,
Yes.
religion, not religion, because I think religion is totally warped, but it's so fascinating is where you were saying the mind, body, spirit, and I keep saying mind, body, spirit. I really think now it's like, it is literally like a triangle where it's a
Mhm.
spirit is on top. And if you have
Yes.
spirit, the mind body will make its
Mhm.
changes. It will manifest in the ways that you want, but you have to have that spirit. And now
Yeah.
people are like, okay, you're hippy dippy. Okay, well, let me explain it this way. Majority of the people that I've trained, majority, and I would say I've probably trained over 500 people in my career to some degree or another. The majority of people don't know what I'm asking or are so uncomfortable when I ask them to just breathe. Can you breathe for me? Just show me how you breathe. Well, like you want me just to breathe? Yeah. And I see it all. Or like, and I'm like, and you're watching, and there's this uncomfortability of someone obviously watching you breathe, but it's so fascinating. It's like, you don't even know what it's like to just sit with your breath.
Yeah.
As you said, when you know your spirit, it starts with that breath on the physical
Mhm.
way, at least, you realize, wow, you were so disconnected to that. And then, as you said, it goes into your blood pH, it goes into your lymphatic system, and
Everything.
it's just so fast. Is there anything that you want to add to that? I just had to get that out.
The pineal gland, honestly, because we're always
Right.
talking about that being like the seat of the soul. I see so many pineal gland weaknesses. Like everyone's is very messed up,
Oh, I
and
can imagine
that's like a huge part of the spirit connection. Like you
yeah,
have to have that cleared out enough to be able to have that connection with God and to really feel that divine energy coming through your vessel. And a lot of people have that blocked off because why? Drinking tap water, showering in tap water, all the food, like baby food, is literally filled with fluoride,
yeah,
things that like are super toxic to our bodies. And people don't really know that. And they're just kind of going through life very unconsciously. So once you start to become aware and bringing that consciousness to like every aspect of your life, especially starting with what you're putting into your body, everything starts to unfold from there. And then you can actually like feel that connection. You feel that calmness and that trust and that actual faith. I feel like a lot of people don't have faith at all because they don't know how to have that connection. They don't trust themselves. And if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust God. And
totally.
that's like the huge thing. It's like the microcosm affects the macrocosm, and we all like it reflects all of that. Like everything looks this like kind of the same. And a lot of iridologists actually, when the whole thing started to come out back in the 1800s, they would talk about that is the way to God, is seeing through the eyes and seeing like everything that you can see going on in the body is also happening in the universe outside of you. So when I'm seeing pineal gland weaknesses, I'm saying to myself, okay, humanity in general is not being able to see, to truly see. And it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
It's incredible. And even looking at not necessarily specific to iridology, but looking at, how we've been told like this realm that we're in, right, in relationship to the eye is like, you can look at it like the Mount Meru is like the pupil and everything kind of leads
Yes.
to it. And when you understand electromagnetism, I know you get this,
Mhm.
but the people who might not, a lot of my people who listen totally are on and they're like waiting for us to just get to the which we've had great stuff here. We've had some awesome stuff, but it just goes to show you, right? Like macro, micro, like, we're so much trying to understand the world around us. The people really are. And it really is going like, just look around, like look in here, like look at the hand, like to
Yeah.
the Bible, like the I am, or not the Bible. Is it Descartes? I, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. It's one of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Philosophy of some kind.
Yeah. So, but it's just really showing like, okay, like the answers are all around me. Like you said, I can know what's going on in my body through my eyes, but it's like now like, oh wow, if I like actually look in my eye, like, is this the kind of world that we're in? Right. Is
Hmm.
kind of from like, that you kind of lay down, right. And you start to see like, there is an energetic pulse, right. Like through the center of the eye. And that's like where you're kind of, and I could be wrong, but it's like you're taking information, it's warped
Yeah.
to make it and then to how you perceive the world, right? And it could be totally
Yes.
different, but it's coming through the eye, it's coming through the pupil, it's coming through all that. You're absorbing light, you're letting light out, whatever the case is. It just starts to make you go like, wow, if there is that relationship to the world around us, and that's kind of where the energy is coming in and out of, through the eyes, and then obviously like, you know, Mount Meru or the center of the earth, wherever you want to call it, you start to
Yeah.
think we're no different. Like again, we're a part of this.
Mm-mm.
And
Yeah, we are deeply a part of the system. I'm reading this book called Return to Nature by Adolf Just, and he talks about literally like laying and sleeping on the ground like we were supposed to, we were meant to. We're supposed to be out in the open air, and we're just all clogged up in these houses, never putting our feet on the actual ground. We're wearing shoes all the time, and nothing is like, we're so disconnected. And then we wonder why everyone is so sick. Like, we're
totally.
not connecting with nature at all. Like, none of the elements we're connecting with them. We should be like having the firelight at nighttime and having the air like brushing our skin all the time. It's just not like that. And if you tell people that, like, damn, I want to just go out in nature and lay on the ground and be naked all the time, people are like, oh, you're nuts.
And I was one of those people when I was starting my journey. I was like, no, you have to, being in the gym, this is where the answer is. Like, and then through my nativity and my ego, it was, realizing like, this is so unusual. Like this world,
Yeah.
it's like, you can't do something without that machine. You can't do something without that piece of equipment. And then you get parents who are like, I don't know what to do. In reality, it's like, it's all around you. It always has. And then as you said about the foot and like connecting with nature, like majority of people's issues, and I can say this as a claim, is they don't know how to actually feel their foot on the floor.
Yeah.
Majority of their, I mean, it's other parts, but a big component of it is the mechanical aspect of not having connection with that, literally the nerve in your big toe specifically that connects to the ground. And I see it all the time, and that was the one thing that that really like blew my mind and got across to a lot of clients is like, there's a difference between me putting my foot on the ground and me pushing or actually putting life into it, putting energy into it. And you see a lot of people standing, but they're not connecting. How do I know that? Look at people's knees locking out,
Yep.
Say, do you see a lot of those things when, I don't know how much you go into this with clients, but do you see stuff like that?
I see a lot of weaknesses in the legs in general because it's like the lack of the connection with the foot. Totally. So if you don't have your like connection to the ground with the foot, the legs start to get really weak, and it's huge. People don't they don't really move their bodies like they're supposed to be. So if you're not moving your body and using your full range of motion all the time, you're going to lose your full range of motion at some point. So it's super important to just get outside. And even if you're not even using equipment, there are so many things you can do outside to just connect with nature and work out and work your body. There's no like, I don't know, monkeys are like super freaking strong and they don't use anything. They eat fruits all day and they just hang around on the trees. Like,
what's their grip strength? It's
exactly.
Foot strength, absolutely. And there's a couple good studies about grip strength having a direct correlation with longevity of life.
Yes.
Which was something that blew a lot of, when I talk about it with clients, they'd be like, what? And it just catches people off because they don't think about, you have this whole body, right? It's like, I have to focus on these big muscle groups, or I have to, focus on what's aesthetically appealing. And it's realizing like, it's all one connectedness, as we've talked, and you understand it. But I think what I'm trying to ultimately get at is that when you can see and experience and breathe life into self in a way where you're going like, I'm here with you, body, I'm here with you energetically, magnetically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever, you start to see how quickly the body is ready to go. Like, thank you.
Yes. The body just wants to heal so bad, like just waiting for you. It's like, you ready yet? Like, I'm waiting.
And you realize,
get this crap out.
Yeah. Well, you even realize too, like how resilient the body is in the sense of knowing like, with all of these things that we're constantly doing to beat up the body and all these different components, you realize it's still waking up every day. It's still trying to do the process. When you see stored lymphatic issues or whatever, skin lesions or things in your wherever in the body, you realize it's like, that's trying to compartmentalize these stresses in a way to protect you. It's not trying to hurt you, it's trying to protect you. Or even seeing obese people walking, right? Like you see these
It's
people.
so insane, like how connected our bodies are and how strong we are and how much we can actually handle. And it's just nuts. And that's on the damage side of the scale. Like, what about our full potential as humans? Like, we're not using like, what do they say, like a tenth of our brains or something like that? Like, it's
Right.
insane to me how we can just like go through life like, oh, this is good enough. I'm happy. You know, I get my drink at the end of the night. I got my cigarettes or whatever I need. I got all my food. I'm just happy, or whatever brings happiness to other people. It's insane to me, like how they can only be happy with like that little amount. Like there's so much more. And it reminds me of that movie Avatar, where they're like so connected with their earth and their trees and they're living inside them and just so like connected with the spirit, and they connect with their animals like through their body and stuff. And it's
I
like,
think that movie was totally trying to tell us something. Well,
yeah,
it was like when
it's
you,
like a big knock on the consciousness.
well, you, I mean, even too, when you like, it, and not to bring it back, but I'm gonna bring it back, like the antediluvian age, like, like giant, like you start to realize, like, also like there was times like I have friends who really go into this stuff and like where there's just naturally more oxygen in the air. Some people say it's
Hmm.
also like potentially silicon, and when you realize that there's a lot of properties that are similar to carbon and all these things, and
Yeah.
ultimately it's like these trees were this massive sizes, right? Like you see
Yeah.
that look like they've been chopped down trees. Like, you know what I mean? You realize
Yeah.
the potential's there. People can do it in a
Absolutely.
greenhouse. I mean, if people who think that's crazy, go to a greenhouse, and if you can distribute more oxygen to you can literally have like pineapples growing in like the
Yeah.
middle of like North Dakota. It's just
Oh yeah.
you can,
Love that.
and that's what's
Geothermal.
yeah,
Yeah, but for oxygen wise, like we're cutting down all of the trees so that we can have cattle roaming for what? Obviously trying to eat them so that we can like kill our bodies some more. Great. But it kind of goes back to that breatharian thing too. I don't know if you've heard about that. A lot of people think that you can like live off of air and stuff. And there's been documented people who have lived a very long time, like over 100 years, by just living on air. And a lot of people now are trying to do that. And I just kind of look at them like, do you realize how much pollution is in the air? Do you realize like those people did have those big trees? That big tree concept is in a book. It's called The Essene Gospel of Peace. It's in the third book. And oops, my battery's at 10%. Okay.
yeah.
So
We're gonna wrap up soon anyway. I'm gonna have to unfortunately go soon, but I want to finish this if you don't mind.
yeah, but it's huge. Like the trees, the connection, like all of that stuff. None of that can, like, we can't be our full potential until we get the earth looking like how we need it to be in order to be at our full potential. Like everything has to reflect on the same level. And that starts inside us. Like you have to start with your body, and then everything reflects outside of that. So that's my message to humanity. Like, kick you in the ass because we need it.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that's a great place for us to wrap it up. And I just want to say thank you so much again for your time. I'm learning so much. I still have many questions, but we're going down these different paths. I just wanted to follow along. But if in the future you ever want to come back, I'd be more than happy to have you
Yeah,
on,
absolutely.
and maybe even showing diagrams of things that you do so people can get visuals. That would be really cool, at least for me
Yeah.
too. So, but where can people find you? Just where's the best spots to find you?
Instagram is like the only platform that I'm using because I feel like it's the most for like free speech right now. And that's at Hippy Britt, HippyBritt. So that's where I'm at. So I'm hoping I can see some more people there because I love sharing information with anyone that will be willing to take it.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely be putting the show notes, and I'll be putting this up, and hopefully get some traffic your way. And I'm very excited to be able to chat with you and learn a little bit more today. And yeah, I hope some of y'all learned something today too. And yeah, I guess we'll end on that. Thank you so much again, Brittany and Britt. And I
Awesome.
will, I'll see you next time. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yep. All right. See you guys.